Plaintiff Serena Robinson loves her mother, but after she came out as a lesbian at the age of 14, it was difficult for her mother to accept. Serena claims the defendant thought it was an experimental phase, and now she's having a hard time accepting that Serena is 5 months pregnant by a sperm donor. Serena is suing her mother for the value of a car and repairs. Defendant Lori Robinson admits that she does not agree with Serena's lifestyle, and she thought it was a phase, but she still loves Serena with all of her heart. Lori does not believe she owes Serena for anything.
Start with you.
Okay, Your Honor. First, I'd like to start with the fact that I love my mother very much. At the age of 14, I decided to come out to her as a lesbian. And this was hard for her to accept because she took it as kind of like a phase or experimental. And this makes it very hard for us to communicate and stay on the same page about a lot of things.
How so? Give me some examples of how it was hard to communicate based on that.
Well, she tends to bring up religious references all the time. I mean,
with regard to your sexuality?
Yes.
Okay. Or your sexual orientation?
Yes. And that just makes it hard for us to communicate.
Yep.
For the last 4 years, I was in a relationship with a woman, and I just recently had to end that because it was unhealthy. And during this time, it made it even more difficult to communicate to my mom that while I was with her, I conceived with a donor, and I'm now 5 months pregnant.
Congratulations. By the way, there are more than one interpretation of the Bible verses regarding homosexuality. That's why you have clergy who openly practice homosexuality, and you have churches who welcome, because some folks have a different interpretation of what the Bible said. No, it says plainly. Well, that's no plainly understanding. Very plainly doesn't mean very plainly to everybody, or it's not very plain to everybody. And that ain't plain to me. Let me hear from you, ma'am, about this.
Well, first let me say it was hard being a single mom raising 4 children on my own, you know, trying to work and provide for them and not being there when they need you to be from time to time. It's a hard task. Serena's my 3rd out of 4 children, and I love her. I love her dearly. Good. I love all my children.
Good.
And I really believe that because at one time I was going through some emotional and physical abuse myself, I was made to look as if I was the abuser. And I think that she began to harbor some resentments because of this issue by keeping things from me. As she mentioned her sexuality, no, I don't agree, but I'm not judge. I'm not God. I love her no matter what. I don't have a phobia. I just will say, you know, to each his own now, you know, God bless, but that's not me. I believed it to be a phase. I did. I believed it to be a phase, and I'm proud of her. I love her regardless. I hope that the child, my grandchild,
and you don't treat her differently
healthy.
Because of her sexual
I do not.
orientation or discriminate against her in any way.
I do not. I do not. I will not. I want her to be treated the way anybody would want to be treated.
Because there's certainly an adjustment period that much of society is going through, and that's understandable. There are a lot of factors that cause people to refuse to accept or understand sexual orientation, particularly now with transgender community. Folks don't know how to understand or accept, don't know politically correct ways to state things. I have to ask folks. I had to ask someone recently words to use regarding a transgender person, because that's a relatively new exposure for me.
Yes.
I don't know much about transgender folks. I did not know if I grew up with any in my community. I may have, they may have been transgender and I didn't know it. But my point is, I have to ask. You have to ask to be careful, because you don't want her or others to get the impression that you think less of them based on their sexual orientation. Let's move on now. That's my speech on that. And the reason I have to give speeches on certain things is because society is so ignorant that they degrade and denigrate folks and abuse and discriminate. Glad to hear you don't. but many do. Many who are viewing do. And so I want to let you know, I don't want you looking at me if you're doing anything that is against the values that I represent and I fight for. So
Amen. I agree. Amen.
So, what is the value of a car and repairs? How does she owe you for that?
Well, Your Honor, in February of 2017, I moved in with my mother, and about a month later, we had some words, an argument, and I felt like I needed to go and find my own place. During this time, my car broke down. I gave my mother money so that she could take it to a mechanic and have it repaired. This was close to a year ago, but the reason why it broke down is because of things that should have been repaired or replaced during that time. I didn't officially move out of the home until April 18th. And I received a text from her on April the 25th saying that she needed me to move my car. And I communicated with her, letting her know that because I had just moved out of the home and into my own place, that I didn't have the funds or the way to move the car or fix the car right then and there. And I felt like she was kind of responsible only because she referred me to the mechanic to take the receipt. It's in her name.
So what happened to the car?
She junked it without my permission.
When?
I believe she gave me until May 1st.
And that's when she junked it? Do you know when she junked it?
I don't know when she junked it.
All right, ma'am, let me hear from you.
She's absolutely correct. I allowed her to keep her car there in the driveway. I had to have the vehicle moved by a certain time for my own personal reasons. I'm getting ready to undergo a total knee replacement, so I'm on workers' comp, and she has been at the house, and I said to her, you know, you're gonna have to move the car. You're gonna have to move it by a certain time because I'm gonna put my car in the driveway.
When did you tell her that?
I told her early
Approximately?
Approximately, I wanna say verbally, and maybe sometime in March.
When did she tell you she was moving?
Pardon?
She left it there in March?
No. She moved out in April. But I'm just saying, you know, when she came home in February, I'm driving my vehicle. I'm not, you know, I was supposed to have the surgery yesterday, but they rescheduled.
Her car wasn't operating in March?
Her car was not operating. It was in the driveway.
In March?
In March.
As of how early in March, do you recall? Was your car
she came home.
in March?
My car was able to start and run. The only problems my car had was overheating.
When did you stop operating it?
I put it in her driveway in March. I don't remember the date in March, but it was still able to drive.
Did she verbally tell you that you have to get the car out of the driveway? Did she tell you that in March?
I don't recall.
I gave an eventually. It's not going to stay here a long period of time. Right. My first real timing, to be exact, with dates and times of texts and messages that I have here, was April 25th. She moved out in April 18th. I gave her April 25th. My first message was, you need to move the car by Monday. That being the 25th. I didn't state Monday. I want to, if I may, show you the text. It's more dated.
And when did you have it junked?
I had it, I made a call, had a friend come by because I didn't have the key, so they had to come by and get the steering column or something they had to do it. I left my gate open and they moved it a day after the first. I believe the first was Monday. It would have been maybe Tuesday.
How did they move it?
So they came, I wasn't there when they moved it. I left the gate open for them to have access to my driveway.
And what happened to the car?
It got junked, and I was told
they junked it. Your friends?
They took it to a scrapyard, and apparently in where they went, the car wasn't worth much. It was supposed to be weighed. I ended up coming out of pocket paying them to do that.
And you feel your official notice to her was around April 25th?
Yes, sir.
All right, and you think 6 days is enough notice before you can junk a person's car?
At that time, yes. If you want to say I was upset, it may seem spiteful because we did have words. Her moving out, she was keeping things from me. I felt like maybe she was trying to take advantage of myself. I am her mother after all. I try my best to provide my children what they need, not what they want. At the same point in time, in assisting her, if I'm saying to you, I have things I have to prepare for, you need to do this by then, considerate that. Don't be telling me, oh, I can't move it like I said. And if you want my car moved, tow it. Don't disrespect me with the message of, I move it when I want to. I gave her a deadline, she didn't meet it, I did junk the car.
Everything you said might sound morally correct. In certain parts of what you said, I agree. However, I have to abide by the law. 6 days after you said you have to move your car immediately, 6 days later you say, come get this car to your buddies. And your buddies junked her car. Who has the fair market value of the car?
I do.
You got to pay her that. I don't know about any repairs. Only thing she did is have the car removed, resulting in being junked. So I'm going to give her, ma'am, the fair market value, $1,536. That was illegal what you did. A lot of people don't know that, so I'm giving a lesson to millions of others.
Yes,
Unfortunately, it's at your expense today. And
Okay.
you
Your
can't
Honor.
touch folks'
Wow.
property and move folks' things. What were your last remarks
Your
before
Honor,
I give you your money?
I feel like she should also be responsible for the repairs.
Why?
Only because the amount that I gave her was over $1,500.
Gave her for what?
To take my car to the mechanic to have my car fixed. But she junked my car before I could even
How much did you give her for the repairs?
$1,505.
Is that true? She gave you $1,505 to get it repaired, and instead you jumped?
It was over a year or so ago, Your Honor. I mean, cars are old, they break down.
But she gave you money to get it fixed,
The vehicle
ma'am.
was in the
And you didn't get it
driveway.
fixed.
No,
Instead, you jumped
I
it.
got the car fixed.
$3,041
I got
is your
the car
judgment.
fixed.
Have a good day.
Wow.
I still love you. You know I still love you.
I love you too.
But
you
right
know
is
I
right.
didn't take your money.
Wrong is wrong, Ma.
I didn't take your money. I got the car fixed. You drive the car. It breaks down. I give you a deadline, sweetie. You have to move.
I know you're my mother, but I'm about to be a mother now.
Okay, so now I hope you do better.